as he proceeds to tell us a story about how he always wanted to go to the moon, but he didn't have a rocket. And so he's walking along one day, he says, and he's smoking some marijuana. And he says when he smokes it, he coughs. And he says, you see what happened when I cough? Well, he coughed. He's like, no, I smoke it, and I cough, and I get just a little bit closer to the moon. And so he realized he doesn't need a rocket, no. He just needs to smoke a whole lot of pot, and then he'll cough his way right up to the moon. So he gets on the horn with his dealer. He's like, I'm gonna need a whole lot of pot. So his dealer shows up with a huge backpack, takes it off, dumps it out, so there's a giant pile of pot. And our man has got a clipboard at this point, does some calculations, looks at the pile of pot, looks at the dealer, and he's like, I think we're gonna need more pot. So the dealer gets on the horn with all his dealers, and soon there are people showing up with wheelbarrows, hatchbacks, station wagons, and there's a giant mound of pot on his front lawn. And he looks at his clipboard with his calculations, looks at the mound of pot, looks at all the dealers arrayed on his front stoop, and he's like, guys, I think we're gonna need more pot. So they all got on the horn with every single dealer across the continent. And soon there are helicopters flying in, unleashing big bushels of pot onto his front lawn. They redirect the train tracks so big freight trains can come in and unload cars of pot. They build a canal from the ocean so container ships can come in and unload containers of pot. There are B-52s landing every 2 minutes, unloading pallet after pallet after pallet of pot, until at the end there is such a mountain of pot that it is literally snowing on top of the mountain. And he looks at his calculations, and he looks up at the mountain of pot, and he looks at all the dealers arrayed in his front lawn, all the be like, please, 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 and he's like, guys, I think we got enough pot. And everyone said, yes. And so quickly he takes a rolling paper out of his pocket, puts it on the ground, and takes a piece of pot off the mountain, sprinkles it on the rolling paper, moves a little bit to his left, takes out another rolling paper, licks the end of it, attaches it to the first, takes a pinch of pot off the mountain, puts it on the second one, moves a little bit to his left, takes out another rolling paper, licks the end of it, attaches it to the second, takes a pinch of pot off the mountain, and he does it step by step by step, following the transcontinental highway 2,000 miles to the opposite coast, at which point he bends down and very gingerly he folds the rolling paper onto itself, and he stands back up and he rolls the end of it and moves a little bit to his right, and he rolls the end of it, moves a little bit to his right, and he rolls the end of it step by step by step, following it 2,000 miles all the way back to the beginning, the whole way working up a whole lot of saliva in his mouth, so that when he runs back along the joint, he can drag his tongue the whole way. And when he gets to it, he bends down, and very carefully, he picks up the joint, using 2 hands so it doesn't break. It's a thing of beauty, man. It's so beautiful. But of course, in every crowd, there are always haters, aren't there? There are people that look at him being, look at his joint, man, it's all bent. And he's like, it's not bent. What you're looking at is the curvature of the earth. And way at the top, he's put a lighter there with a string coming all the way down. But before he can pull that lighter, what does he have to do? He has to exhale. Not just every bit of air from his lungs, no. He has to reach within his body and pull out every bit of space in between every cell. He has to reach into every nucleus of every cell, deep into the mitochondria, pull out every bit of air until by the time he's fully exhaled, he's 1/5 his normal height, his skin all wrinkly around him. So when he pulls the string, it lights and he starts to inhale. And he's inhaling. Not just for minutes, but minutes that bleed into hours, that bleed into weeks, that bleed into months, man. And there's a huge crowd all forming around him. Everybody's so impressed. Not just that he's smoking a really big joint, no, it's that he's taking a really big hit off a really big joint. And he's there, man, telling himself, stay on target, even though it feels like there's a million cats having a million cat fight in his lungs, until finally someone in the crowd's like, there it is. And they can spot it, the burning, glowing red cherry ember, way at the top, working its way down. And the end is the hardest, man. He's just, until at the very, very, very end, he has to reach into his pocket, and he has to take out a roach clip so he doesn't burn his fingers. Until all of a sudden, it's gone. And all that's standing above him is a huge tower of ash that just drifts apart in the next zephyr. And when he looks back down, he's a monstrous thing, with eyes that are so bloodshot that the capillaries are bursting with little spritzes of blood. And everybody around him is like, I think he's gonna blow, man. And he's trying to tell them, he doesn't know how much longer he can keep it in until so all of a sudden just a huge geyser of smoke shot down that billows out to the side, and everybody's trying to outrun the smoke, but they can't, and it envelops everybody, and all of a sudden no one's entirely sure what they were running from. And he, in the middle of that, just shoots straight up in the air, passes right through a gaggle of geese. When he looks back down and the smoke clears, he swears those geese are no longer flying in a V formation. They're now flying in the formation of a peace symbol. And still, he's shooting straight up, passes a 747. When he looks back down, he swears that 747 is now flipped over on its back, but its wings behind its head, and it's saying to him, "You fly the friendly skies, man." And still shooting straight up, he passes through a communications satellite, envelops that in smoke, and soon every single phone conversation around the earth is one in which people are trying to order pizza. And still he's shooting through space, and he's all of a sudden realizing, oh no, there's one thing he hadn't really thought about. And no, it's not that there's no air in space, because he couldn't breathe even if he wanted to. He's still coughing and coughing and coughing. No, it's that the moon is a rock, and he's not wearing a helmet, and he's going straight for it, and just, yeah, bam! Smashes straight in the moon, and all these moon rocks are thrown up into the air, or whatever it's called on the moon. And they hang there until they slowly start to drift back down. And way at the bottom of a newly formed crater is here a man who's lying on a big pillow of moon dust. And he's looking way down from where he just came. This little jewel, this little marble of color, man. The only speck of color in this endless field of black felt studded with little diamond points of light. And he's thinking two things as he's looking way down at the earth. And one is just that he wants to go back, you know. This place, this little hint of life and color, the only bit of life in the entire galaxy. Life that suddenly seems so precious, you know, and so brief too. And maybe that's what makes it so precious, is that it is so brief. And he feels that every moment he didn't spend loving or being loved was a moment wasted. And there's so much that he regrets. And the second thing he's thinking as he's looking way down at the earth is just, I am really, really high.